democracy and the culture of democracy in the Constitution. And this is all thanks to a very interesting article that I came across last week titled American Democracy Was Never Supposed to Work. And this is by Richard Kreitner. And this has been published in The Nation. And yeah, I'm going to read it. It's a very short, sweet article, but after reading it the first time around, I realized quickly that there's a rabbit hole to be found here. So I figured I would use today's Constitution Study Group to start to go down that rabbit hole and really understand how serious were the Founding Fathers about democracy and how effective was the Constitution written to protect democracy. You know, are we really a culture of democracy? That's certainly what people, American people, identify our culture as. And so yeah, I'm going to talk about that today. As always, if you're watching live and you have questions or you have any comments about, you know, what I'm talking about or things that I should explore and research, that's the point of this Constitution Study Group. I started this at the beginning of quarantine. Let's stop using that word. At the beginning of the pandemic, you know, with all of our time inside and all of the live streaming that I started to do as a forum where somebody, hey, oh, blind 3, I'm on now. And not only am I on, but Bitcoin's on. Bitcoin wants to have a dance party today. What do you think? Do you think Bitcoin could become, you know, the king of Twitch? Do you think it's possible? What do you think, Bitcoin? And he's such a good sport. There's food on the table. It's the only reason why he's sitting up here. He's smarter than that. He really is. So yeah, today's music is a track titled, oh, it changed. We're in a track. Oh, the album is called Democracy. Well, so this is an album called Democracy by a producer called Mr. Carter. So this was the closest thing I could find to democracy with that sweater. It's possible. It is. This is I call this his McFly jacket because doesn't he look like he looks like a Marty McFly? Like he's such a baby. He got a bath today, so he's smelling pretty fresh. Oh, Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin is almost up to 20,000 a coin right now. Let's see, where are we at exactly? I want to be... and of course, we have on Black Friday... Oh, it went down a little bit. It's at $18,728.20 US per coin. Pretty valuable. Yeah, so Black Friday coming up on Friday. Our favorite democratic American holiday. And, you know, the Bitcoin world, they put on a pretty cool event they call Bitcoin Black Friday, where they encourage Bitcoin merchants, such as TLEP, to heavily discount their products specifically for the Bitcoin community to incentivize Bitcoiners to use their Bitcoin in commerce, which ultimately helps increase the trade value of Bitcoin. So last time we were involved was in 2013. That was when we very first started accepting Bitcoin. And that was the day that Bitcoin value went up, like really big, had a big explosive growth for that time. And we did amazingly well. That was kind of when we had first started the company, and so, you know, sales were slow. Additionally, tea was slow. Back in 2013, tea wasn't nearly as popular as it is now. So, you know, sales were slow back then. And just in that day, you know, we did incredible sales of Bitcoin. Ended up being 85% of all of our revenue for that time, for that month. So I know that there is some effect, you know, that this event does affect Bitcoin's price. So on Friday and Saturday, keep your eyes out for the price of Bitcoin. And in fact, you may want to even buy some if you're seeking diversification in your investment strategies. Yeah. Wait till Friday, Caleb. Yeah, speaking of, we will be discounting all of our teas for both retail and wholesale for this weekend. It's something we do every year. I don't offer many sales. You know, that's not the. Oh, look, Bitcoin ate the food. Oh, did you enjoy that? Oh, no wonder he's happy. He ate the food. I'm like over here looking at the foil that the food was in, and it's all broken up. Oh, Bitcoin, you are a bad boy. Yeah, he made a mess, a whole mess over here. I'm going to have to clean this all up. Dang it, Bitcoin. I was looking forward to eating the rest of that. So on our retail website, that's teaanditspeople.com, all the website, every product will be, your whole shopping cart will be 25% off. Also, if you order at least $80, there'll be free shipping for US-based customers. So it's a good time to get the tea. And for our wholesale clients, we do this every year where we offer free shipping, which for, you know, a small business, that's a big deal. So we know a lot of our clients wait until the Black Friday weekend to get their big orders to us, just so that they can save on their shipping, because that's more capital that they can save for their employees, you know, for their own marketing and promotions and whatnot. So yeah, a big sales weekend this weekend. Lots of things going on. Additionally, our big event, the Small Tea Grower Festival, is happening, and I'm really looking forward to that one. I just recorded one of the pre-recorded sessions for one of the small growers, Bob Jacobson from Hawaii Rainforest Tea. And yeah, he gave us a cool little introduction, very authentic story of his experience in tea, learning about tea, growing tea, making tea. And yeah, we have 3 other small tea growers that will also be presenting. And there will be some live components to the events, because of course we do want to bring those connections and relationships forward in this event. So in addition to these pre-recorded videos, we will also have like live virtual tea tasting together. So if you purchase the premium experience tickets, I have already shipped the tea to you. You should be receiving it today or Friday in time for the event on Saturday. And you'll be able to drink the tea with us, including a very exclusive, beautiful white tea from Bob Jacobson. So we'll see you on Saturday. That event will be streaming across all of our channels. So if you're following us on Twitch or Facebook, you'll definitely be notified when that event begins. And that'll be at 5 p.m. Pacific to 9 p.m. So fun little 4-hour post-Thanksgiving, Black Friday shopping little tea party for us to have fun together. So now I'm going to move on to reading this article. I had a little technical difficulty. If you saw me earlier, I was on, and unfortunately, my freaking tea kettle, you know, I heard this happens in the UK often. You know, there's so many tea kettles that go off all at the same time that they cause the electricity to short and the power to go out. And so that's what happened here. My tea kettle just caused all the power to go out. And I just started streaming and I got cut off, so that's what happened, if you were worried. My tea kettle causing mischief over here. But yeah, this is a serious thing in the UK. They have to be prepared every afternoon because so many people turn their electric kettle on at the same time for their tea time. So cool. Powerful tea kettle. Oh, speaking of powerful tea kettle, before, we can have a little fun. I want to introduce to you the Jettle.
Boiling a kettle to make a cup of tea. We do it every day. But is there another way? Yes, there is. And this is it. The Jettle. Woo.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about the power going out if I have one of these. A little loud. Now we got the sound back. I had to turn the sound down because the Jettle was so loud. Did you hear that? I was like, I didn't want to, I'm trying to do some like fun, peaceful things here, not, blow everybody's speakers out with the Jettle. Okay, let's get serious now. Democracy, serious stuff. And this very provocative title to an article, American democracy was never supposed to work. What does this mean? I thought we're meant to be a democratic culture where we love democracy, we love our rights. Okay, yeah, so this article originally appeared in The Nation, and that's where this writer, and I will go into more detail about this writer after the article, because he's an interesting guy and has some good tips that I think would help us that are interested in studying the Constitution and studying our country's political history. So, if the United States were a democracy, this election wouldn't have been close. The fate of the world wouldn't depend on a handful of suburban precincts. The winner would have been known immediately. With a comfortable lead well into the millions, the president-elect and his party could have moved on to crafting and passing the program that gained them an undeniable mandate. But we do not have a democracy, and not because Trump undermined it, but because the framers of the Constitution did not create one. They felt the Articles of Confederation left too much power in the hands of the economic populists in the states, and so they constructed a system meant to serve and protect the rich. The Constitution was designed specifically to prevent, as James Madison put in the Federalist Papers, an abolition of debts, or an equal distribution of property from passing into law. Nearly 2.5 centuries on, the anti-democratic provisions of the Constitution are still working as the framers intended. Even in an era of global capital, the wealthy benefit from a sclerotic, dysfunctional government. When early election results suggested a Joe Biden presidency with Republicans maintaining their grip on the Senate, the Associated Press reported that stocks rallied on Wall Street as investors embraced the upside of more gridlock in Washington. Divided government, these investors seem to think, will derail what Madison called wicked or improper projects: the abolition of student debt, higher taxes on the wealthy, the Green New Deal. More than progressive economic measures, however, democracy itself is being thwarted by the Constitution. In the summer of 1787, opposition to rule by the people was one of the few things the delegates in Philadelphia would agree upon. They spent the first few days of the convention reassuring one another of their anti-democratic credentials. Elbridge Gerry, who I will visit later on, of Massachusetts, was typical in deeming democracy the worst of all political evils. The Constitution they designed included provisions and mechanisms meant to water down the popular will and block a more equal distribution of wealth. The president would be selected not by the people, but by an electoral college whose members would be appointed by the state legislatures. The Senate, with equal votes from every state, large and small, would ensure the citizens of large populous states had far less influence over legislation and judicial appointments than those in smaller ones. Alexander Hamilton wanted its members to serve lifetime terms, for nothing but a permanent body can check the imprudence of democracy. Though he opposed giving each state equal votes, James Madison thought the upper house should serve as a check on the democracy, a way to impede the influence of those who labor under the hardships of life and secretly sigh for a more equal distribution of its blessings. Far from resolving a decade of paralysis and crisis, the 2020 election has only confirmed doubts about the stability of American democracy, institutions, and the constitutional order. The Democrats' apparent failure to recapture the Senate, assuming anything less than a miracle in Georgia this January, removes the possibility for the foreseeable future of steps the party might have taken to offset its structural disadvantages, such as expanding the courts and admitting Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia as states. Merely ousting Trump is not enough without addressing more fundamental weaknesses in our political system, especially an outdated constitution that continues to serve a minority of wealthy and white citizens and to curb any movements that may threaten their wealth and power. The anti-democratic Senate, for example, is the main obstacle to passing serious legislation on climate change. Without a practical plan for revising the Constitution, Democrats will be condemned to play by rigged rules. In the 1780s-like moment in which the existing Constitution seemed incapable of responding to crisis, yet too difficult to amend. The choice Americans face then between national rupture or national renewal is the one we face now. We can still choose the latter, but it will require devising new institutions that empower the many instead of the few. A constitutional convention may be required to fix some of the flaws of the original charter. That's what I was saying. We need the actual convention. Anyway. The Senate has to be abolished or otherwise deprived of its veto over national affairs. Term limits on the Supreme Court should be instituted so that each presidential term sees the same number of vacancies. The House of Representatives has to be expanded, as it has not been since 1911, when the country had less than 1/3 of its present population. To be sure, even a constitutional convention may not be enough to reverse the country's descent into dysfunction, perhaps even dissolution. It could itself trigger a breakdown of the political order. Yet that might be a risk worth taking if the United States is to survive for any kind of worthy purpose, such as leading a global effort to avert climate catastrophe. More than a new president, we need a radical reimagining of what this country can and must become. Nothing less than a full-scale attempt at national renewal. How does that sound? National renewal. That's insane, you know? It's so interesting because that was like my no sound. Seriously, it's still no sound. Is there still no sound? No way. My mic is on. It says it's getting sound. Sorry, Joe. I had no sound earlier. That was my problem. But I'm on now. Okay, Kayla hears me. I'm being heard, Joe. Maybe you are in the past and we're in the present. Yeah, the video. I turned the video sound down because the jettle was a little too insane. The jettle was a little too loud. But yeah, this is pretty provocative, you know. So who is this guy? Who is this Richard Kreitner to like make such broad statements about about what was the word he used? The national renewal. Yeah, chosen the past. We're in the present. Get into the future. Yeah, so Richard Kreitner. I found his bio. You know, there's not much of a bio for this guy. He's a writer. He authored a book called Break It Up: Secession, Division, and the Secret History of America's Imperfect Union. So I'm pretty sure if you read this book, it'll give you a lot more background on what he's talking about in this article. Probably a lot more historical context. Yeah, John, I don't know, maybe your computer's on mute. Everybody else is hearing me. But I literally was muted earlier. Sorry, Joe. Can you read me? All right, so yeah, try to refresh the video maybe, because yeah, maybe from when I muted earlier, your computer is still thinking I'm muted. But something about this guy, here's his photo. This is him, Richard, young guy, young dude, stirring stuff off. Stirring shit up. All right, I'm just gonna use the real words here. He seems like a smart dude. But I found this interview with him, and he's got some cool little... It's working on your phone. Okay, interesting. Okay, this was funny. What's the last book you read? He says, I'm in the middle of a biography of a fairly obscure individual called Donald Trump. 4 years into his presidency, I decided to read this book and definitive biography by Wayne Barrett, the reporter who dug into him the most. This came out in 1992, 4 or 5 Trumps ago. That's funny, 4 or 5 Trumps ago. There's nothing surprising about the way his presidency has turned out if you know in detail how he rose to renown in the first place. It's always been the same tricks, same lies and deceits. Yeah, awesome. Joe, we got you. Cool. I liked his answer to this question. To which book do you most often return to reread or look things up? There are several answers depending on the context. I guess I'll go with the professional one. Oh, come on. Why do we gotta be professional? Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass and also his Democratic Vistas. Whenever I try to get back to zero, to get back to equanimity, to reset, I go back to Whitman because his conclusions after the Civil War about what the country was and what it could be are the right ones, the most inspiring ones, and the real truth. Walt Whitman. Yeah. You like Walt, don't you, Faith? think you do. Anyway, I looked up his book. Yeah, Transcendentalism. So his book, this book, Democratic Vistas, it's actually available. The full book is available to read on Google Books. So, yeah, dance party jams, because this is a democracy dance party. From Bitcoin? Ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah, I chose this music because this album is called Democracy by music producer Yawar Khan. Mr. Carter. Yeah, I thought it was funny that it was dance music. I figured, I'll just go with it. So yeah, this book is fully available. I'm not going to read it. It's actually quite short. I probably could read it, or at least parts of it. It's only like 25 or 26 pages long. So I am going to read it. If I find something cool from it, maybe I'll bring it back to this forum and we can look at it together. But yeah, I thought that was cool. I've always liked Walt Whitman. I didn't know about this book, so yeah, we're already halfway through it. Easy read. So this is called Democracy Vistas, and it's his response after the Civil War, which I thought was incredible. So I wanted to share that with you. Actually, maybe I'll put the link to the book in the comments. So if you guys want to check it out, the full book is available there. Oh, Bitcoin. Oh, you just loved that food, didn't you? You're a happy little boy. He ate my food. I had to go out and do like a curbside drop off real quick. And he ate it. By the time I got back to my table, he ate all the food. It happens. All right. So let's go back to the interview. That's... Your book is about disunion and secession. Which American would be secessionists would you most like to have had a meal with? His answer is, that's easy. Thomas Wentworth Higginson, who is this incredibly colorful, flamboyant character. He's most known in history for two things. One was that he was Emily Dickinson's editor. She wrote to him in the Civil War. He was a well-known critic, and they had a long correspondence, and he shepherded her work to publication after she died. I didn't know that. So none of her stuff ever got published until after she died? I didn't know about that. I'm not like a huge follower of Emily Dickinson, but that's interesting. The other was that he was the commander of the 1st Black Regiment in the Civil War, and he wrote a remarkable book about it titled Army Life in a Black Regiment. Before the Civil War, he was for disunion. He wanted to break it up because it was a pro-slavery union. He convened the only Northern Disunion Convention in Worcester, Massachusetts in 1857 after the Republicans lost the presidential election. He was a dashing figure. He was into calisthenics. He was a feminist, and he engaged in physical brawls to try to free captured slaves from federal custody. That does sound like an interesting dude. And this was an interesting answer to his question. Who is your political hero? He said, I would say Bernie Sanders, an unexciting choice. It's the way that he has totally changed the American political conversation in 2016. I was at the Nation at that time. He came out of the office in 2015, maybe 2014, to say he was running. We asked him skeptical questions about the politics and how people respond to the word socialism, and he just breezed past those and said that Americans were ready to talk about all these things. I thought he was wrong. I was stunned by the success that he had. He has some blind spots, some missteps. He's not the most fantastic politician, but I think he's done pretty well in advancing his ideas. If Biden wins in 2 weeks and Democrats have an opportunity to launch a political transformation, I think the history books will remember Bernie Sanders extremely well. So that's something else interesting too, is that there's this assumption that, Biden's campaign is going to be on board for this restructuring. National renewal is the word that Richard used here in his article. Do you assume that the Democratic Party is interested in this restructuring? Do you think that they're really interested in democracy and making the modifications to our Constitution and our infrastructures? I'd be interested in hearing your opinion on that. If you think that that's really something that's in the cards for the Democratic Party and what they want. Because really, from what I've seen so far on his cabinet, announcements or forecast of who he's expected, there's a lot of cynicism that real change is in the works or is on their agenda. It's a nice thought, Kayla. Yeah, it is a nice thought. But yeah, with a name like Democratic Party, you think that they would be all about democracy. I thought that's the origins of the name of their organization. All right, so the last thing I wanted to do in this article, if you remember, I quoted something here, Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts, deeming democracy the worst of all political evils. All right, Joe's in. Let's hear Joe. Joe says, I basically assume that anyone playing within the confines of the current system can't truly support a full restructure. It's hard to articulate my full view in one comment, though. I know, yeah, it's a big thing. But that's true. So then what's it gonna take? Is it gonna take enthusiastic, energetic young people within that, how can you make any change to that system without coming up through that system, is what I'm thinking, Hi, Brian. What's up, man? Yeah, there's a lot of enthusiasm around AOC and her ideas, and I'm sure there's a whole cohort of young Democratic leaders that, have their own passions and ideas, and they're working within that system. Although I have seen, some articles where they're starting to speak up about the ills in the system. Is that going to be strong enough for them to resist that system? And, there are people like my friend Brock Pierce, who ran for president as an independent, who is from an outside trying to drop basically parachute drop directly into the system to try to make some changes, and really I don't even know what influence the investment of all of his work made on that. I mean, personally for him, I'm sure he learned a lot. I have yet to see him deeply share with the public what he's learned. I'm sure he will when the time is right. Because that could be powerful too, sharing his experience of the corrupt system. But yeah, this guy, Elbridge Gerry, I thought is he the dude that started the gerrymandering? Oh, I gotta look that up, because that name Gerry sounds familiar. It is after him. This dude is on the blacklist, but we're gonna research him anyway because his story is interesting. So yeah, this guy he's the one that invented gerrymandering. And gerrymandering, when I had the woman on from Kathleen from the We the People organization here in Nevada, she had said that gerrymandering was one of the biggest issues against democracy in our political system. And that's when different precincts, like voting precincts, are determined in order to influence the political power within the states. So sometimes you look at the districts and how they're divided, and it makes no sense why they're divided that way. There's no order to it. They're usually, there's usually an order to it behind the curtain that we don't know why, So yeah, this is the gerrymandering dude. So this guy's interesting because he signed both the Declaration of Independence and this is from STCC, Springfield Technical Community College. This is like a document published on their website. This little profile. I found it to be a good profile of this guy. He signed both the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Confederation, but he's most famous for refusing to sign the Constitution. Born into a prominent merchant family in Massachusetts, Elbridge is a well-educated and politically active. 1772, at the age of 28, he was elected to the Massachusetts General Court. Gerry quickly aligned himself with Samuel Adams and other members of the Whig opposition to Great Britain's colonial policies. In 1774, he was a member of the Massachusetts Provincial Congress, organized in reaction to the Massachusetts Government Act passed by Parliament the same year. I'm going to skip over all this stuff. Okay, so Gerry returned to Massachusetts in 1785. A year later, he received a frustrating letter from Rufus King, a fellow Massachusetts delegate and friend. King complained that the states were so unconcerned with the affairs of the nation that Congress lacked enough delegates even to convene a quorum. Where, my dear friend, will the evils consequent to this inattention in the states terminate? The people of the states do not know their dangerous situation. This torpor and inactivity should alarm the guardians of the people, but indeed the legislature seem the least attentive. King pleaded with Gerry to pray think of our situation and advise me. I can open my heart with freedom to you. You are now at home and will be concerned in the government of the states. An excess of democracy. Rufus King had correctly anticipated that his friend would be preoccupied with Massachusetts issues and politics. Neither King nor Gerry could have predicted, however, that during the fall and winter of 1786, Gerry would be getting a frightening first-hand view of citizens laid siege to their own government and constitution. The Massachusetts government struggled to put down the rebellion through a combination of military force and the offer of pardons in exchange for oaths of allegiance. As the danger passed and Daniel Shays and other insurgent leaders went into hiding, Massachusetts and 11 other states chose delegates to attend a convention in the spring and summer of 1787 to revise the ineffectual Articles of Confederation. Elbridge Gerry's years of experience in Congress made him an obvious choice. He proved to be a hard-working delegate who contributed frequently to the discussion and debates. The evils we experience flow from the excess of democracy. The people do not want virtue, but are the dupes of pretended patriots. In Massachusetts, it's been fully confirmed by experience that they are daily misled by the most baneful measures and opinions by the false reports circulated by designing men, in which no one on the spot can refute. He said, been too Republican heretofore. He was still, however, Republican, but had been taught by experience the danger of the leveling spirit. Gerry agreed with the other Massachusetts delegates, including Rufus King, that a stronger, fiscally sound central government was the only solution to the unrest in Massachusetts and other states. In the end, however, he decided the proposed Constitution would create more problems than it would solve. Like George Mason of Virginia, Gerry resisted intense pressure from other delegates to sign the Constitution and thus present an unanimous, united front. Indeed, the urgings of Benjamin Franklin and others seemed to harden Gerry's resolve. And so on September 17th, he tried to explain his reasoning to his fellow delegates. Whilst the plan was depending, he had treated it with all the freedom he thought it deserved. He now found himself bound as he was disposed to treat it with the respect due to the act of the convention. He hoped he should not violate that respect in declaring on this occasion his fears that a civil war may result from the present crisis of the U.S. In Massachusetts, particularly, he saw the danger of this calamitous event. In that state, there are two parties, one devoted to democracy, the worst he thought of all political evils, and the other as violent in the opposite extreme. From the collision of these as opposing and resisting the Constitution, confusion was greatly to be feared. Gerry believed that the radically stronger federal government outlined in the proposed Constitution would inevitably alienate those who wanted to keep more authority within the individual states. He thought that the resulting plan should have been proposed in a more mediating shape in order to abate the heat and opposition of parties. As it had been passed by the convention, he was persuaded it would have a contrary effect. Having already gotten the taste of the anarchy and horror of a civil war with Shays' rebellion, Gerry was not willing to risk the discord and violence he thought the new federal plan might produce. This fear, combined with his criticisms that the Constitution lacked a Bill of Rights and a sufficiently clear separation of powers, forced Gerry to regretfully conclude that he could not, therefore, by signing the Constitution, pledge himself to abide by all of its events. So, this is like really extreme anti-federalists. He might have been one of the anti-federalists that, wrote some of the articles at that time. It seems that he was pretty busy being a politician and a war hero, or warrior, I should say. I don't know if he was a hero, but what's interesting, in this whole conversation is that it's the argument about democracy at this time. Like this story I just read about this Aldridge Gerry. The conflict was between a strong union, a federal union, like a strong central government that would control all of the states, versus the states having their own control. And at that time, each state was, compared to now, was definitely a much smaller community of people to manage a democracy versus the federal. But it's still centralized. If we're talking about a true democracy, that's true autonomy between the individuals in that community. So each individual has their own independent engagement with the government. So, the argument between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists wasn't about the individuals having their own connection. It was about the states having more power versus the federal having more power. So, even though it is a smaller, more localized organization, it's still centralized. When I first started doing these Constitution study groups, I always equated the Anti-Federalists to being what we see now as the decentralization movement. So that's crypto, that's Bitcoin. That's why we got the dance music. It's just for Bitcoin so he can dance. Bitcoin is a decentralist. So, I think that now is probably a good time to bring this argument up again, and unfortunately it's not going to be the delegates from the states. It's not going to be the politicians that are going to bring value to that conversation. It's going to be the entrepreneurs and, truly being able to outline the democracy at every level. So you have the individuals, and then local government, then state, then the federal, and like what are the places for each and the roles for each of those layers in order to best secure democracy. Because all of these conversations they're all arguing about who's going to have the central power versus how do we empower the individual. And I think that we're in a time now with influencer and leaders that really can bring some value to that conversation. Speaking of, Joe has something important to say I'm going to share with everybody. So Joe says, we ask, how can we enact a new system if not by coming up through that old system? However, I think the real question we are really asking is, how can we enact dramatic change within a complete and traumatic collapse of the old system? I'm not sure we can. It may very well take trauma. In the same way that every other new system has arisen. And we may be experiencing the beginning of that trauma right now. Symbolically, we can see how brutally our grandparents are passing away, and so too may be their system. I won't pretend to know what the new system will look like, but I can see the old one dying in agony, clinging to every thread of life. Wow, that was dramatic, Joe. Nice wording. Wait, Faith, what is that? Seeking danger, warning. Warning, seeking danger behavior. What does that mean? I don't think we're seeking any danger. We're seeking peace and harmony in democracy. You're also a supporter of the idea that more power in the local community, it leads to more diversity, and we're trying to unite so many people under one rule, and it's obviously not working. Yeah, so that's what I was saying, Joe, is that like at this time, at the time of the Constitution writing, the framers of the Constitution, which is what I'm trying to keep the study group together, is like understanding the historical context, what people were thinking at the time when they wrote this stuff that we're still following to this day. Inside joke. You can't share an inside joke while I'm streaming, because there's other people here. Not seeking danger. Oh, I get it. Yeah, I get the inside joke now. Someone accused me of being a danger seeker. I don't think so. I mean, I'm pretty, like, mellow. I'm pretty mellow. I do find myself in some dangerous situations sometimes, and I'm like, what? How did this happen? I just want to be chilling out, eating some food. As I'm eating, like, raw fish and, like, street food. Yeah. So, yeah, Joe, that's interesting. So, like, this new system is going to have to better lay out all of those layers. You're so dangerous, Lisa Simpson. I'm trying to... What is that from? Like, what did Lisa say? Is that a quote from her? That pedantic little girl. So that's interesting. Yeah, I don't see it as like an immediate quote online. Really need to get a white wig for these chats. So on Instagram, sometimes I do. I put a filter that gives me a white wig. Yeah, maybe I could do it here. Let me get it. We'll figure it out. Let's see. I'm gonna try one. If it works quickly, that'll be cool. But I doubt it'll work quickly. Yeah, no, I would need to edit it. Yeah, it cuts off my head, but unfortunately, that's not gonna work. Sorry, guys. Not gonna work. I'll have to work harder. Find the right one. All right, I'm gonna try it again. I'll try it again. Oh, I think this might work. Oh, here we go. Okay, perfect. All right, is that better, Faith? Does that make you feel better? But now I'm gonna have to like stay still because I don't have it like attached to me. I'd have to like, yeah, okay, there we go. All right, I got my wig for you guys. Yeah, Joe has always got dramatic insights. Just don't move. I'm like the old man that wore this thing. I'm not gonna move. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna like come up with all the ideas about how the world's gonna work and not do anything. Oh, that's funny. That's so funny. I guess I can like move the wig as I move. Apply neck brace. Oh, that's going to be even more awkward. But Joe, yeah, thank you. This is real, and it is an important discussion to have. Diversity is not the same as inclusivity. Inclusivity is simply homogeny in a wig. That's interesting. I like that a lot, Joe. Thank you for sharing that. Inclusivity is simply homogeny in the wig. Yeah, so we don't live in democracy. Man, it's blowing my mind. You know, I always thought, we're America. We're the strongest democracy in the world. Now, is there a true democracy? And in a true democracy, I think it's possible. I think if you have all of the layers of community organization laid out with the roles of each and how each of those layers are going to respect each other. I mean, we did it between the federal and states. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do it even lower, all the way to the individual. And like actually give some tangible rights to people. Because like, I've talked about the individual rights before on this, and I mean really outside of voting and like our freedom to speech, which should just be default. There's not a whole lot of other like actionable responsibilities or rights that are given to us. Most of our rights written out are criminal rights, which is great that those are addressed. I'm not saying that those should be removed. It's just, I think that there's more of a responsibility that us as individuals do and can play in how our community functions. And the Constitution doesn't lay any of that out for us. It's just federal and state. And even state is like just breezed upon, and that like whatever has been written for the states' rights is really just a function of, what are the states' responsibilities and involvement with the federal centralized government. And yeah, that may turn our Constitution into a document much larger than what it is now, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Our Constitution's pretty darn short as is, so there's a lot of room, and it doesn't have to be complex. You can still make it as simple. Just addressing those different layers could get us closer to democracy, I think. I think maybe this is from Joe. He says, I think maybe the incentive to keep the structure upheld is the problem. We live in a world that uses punishment as the motivation for people to work together. Punishment may have its place, but it's not a silver bullet. I thought that we were motivated by pursuit of happiness. Not punishment. But I guess if you're not being punished, you can be happy, right? Punishment reward is the lowest form of education. I don't know. That's not what Bitcoin says. As he's like sleeping so peacefully with his belly full of all of my delicious food for my lunch. Should I punish him, Joe? Is that what you're saying? Bitcoins, you're supposed to give me treats every time I do something good. He says, I'm going to start dancing to some techno music. Give me treats. So what is a better education? It's obviously not the education system that we're working in currently. True intelligence is like true wisdom. Is simple. I've lived among communities of people that have never gone to a day of school in their life, so I've experienced that. And you have to say, that they are intelligent people. Maybe that's not the right word, but they're totally wise. More wise than, anything that I had experienced before. So understanding and love. So that's the education. That's a big one. I mean, it's just like life and the ability to fully be present in that life. It reminds me that there was this guy that I met during the Burning Man multiverse, and he was a researcher from Hong Kong. His research was like psychology, and he was researching the two different states that we can be in. So like there's a state of presence, and that's like we're not in our head at all. Like we're just present here. And actually there's a high level of like innate wisdom that's possessed in that state. It's the type of wisdom where like someone can ask you a question, you could just like answer it like without thinking, right? Versus like the other state is when you're in your head. And when you're in it's physiologically impossible to be in both states at the same time. That's what he's come to find. And he's researching that and researching how, how, like, first, what are the benefits of being present and, like, building up that intelligence and wisdom and presence versus, not getting caught in our heads. And what are practices that we can do and encourage, in the world so that people, can work on that more intuitive knowledge versus constantly being in your head. Because then when you're constantly in your head, like your ability to process things and make decisions lessens. And I mean, man, what a world we come to where we completely let go of that. That's what they're worried about with us being too addicted to the technology. Is that like we become so reliant upon the calculator, so reliant upon Google that we lose our intuitive knowledge. So Joe says, hurt people always hurt people. If you help people heal themselves, you don't have to punish them for hurting others. Yeah. The hurt goes deep, though, and it's hard to heal. And help self-heal. Self. Yeah, Kayla. Yeah, that makes it easier. You know, because someone else healing you, even if it's someone that you love, like from the outside, is so hard. You know, and unless you've already first made that commitment to yourself, you're always going to like push out any kind of help that comes for you. But, you know, if you first focus on your self-healing and commit yourself to that, then if help comes, you're going to be more welcoming to it. So yeah, that's a good point, Kayla. Working on personal traumas and bias is huge, but so that's the hard part, is like, how do we help people realize that for themselves, especially people that are successful. And I mean successful in the sense of being like an accomplished human being in our modern society, wealthy, well employed, well educated. There can't be anything wrong with me. I've acquired the American dream. There can't be anything wrong with me. And those are the folks that we really need to be pushing for this self-healing the most of anybody. You know, because they may not be committing violent crimes that are in your face, which is what most people think of, like, oh, we need to heal the hurt people because they're out hurting people, like literally strangling them. But then, you know, like the people that we're talking about in this politics thing, like the politicians, the leaders, and the whole system that was built for the wealthy elite, they're not like in your face violence, but they're violence in a very deep and very like freaking expansive way. Yeah, we need to get them self-healing first. Joe says, there's only one relationship, the relationship with self and source. Everything else is a reflection of that. We, my partner and I, have been exploring that a ton lately, and it just becomes more and more obvious that it is true. That's cool, Joe. That's cool work you guys are doing. He says, if I'm a dick to you, it's because I'm a dick to myself first. Well, Joe, you like being a dick to yourself? I don't think so, man. Kayla says, they are successful in a system that is harmful to people, to the planet, and to spirit itself. Yeah, so, yeah, this is a deep, multi-layered thing. But this conversation has been documented, and those powers that be that we're talking about here that need to do some healing, you know, hopefully they'll come across this video. Oh, that'd be great. Bitcoin, what do you think? Bitcoin says he wants another quesadilla. He says, it was so delicious. I can't believe he ate my food. But I can't be harmful to him because it's just going to proliferate the violence. You know Gandhi, right? Gandhi is like the king of modern nonviolence philosophy. He was a real human being. You know, a lot of people give him shit for that. I actually like him better because of that. And he was a real human being that made mistakes. And he's a real human being that wrote about those mistakes. And he probably went to his deathbed with those mistakes not reconciled within himself, which is human. And And he had children. He had a family, he had children. And I've had the privilege of meeting two of his grandsons. One of them, I heard a speech about what it was like growing up with Gandhi as your guardian. Because I guess he grew up in the ashrams with Gandhi. And so that's interesting. It's like, okay, so here, the parent-child relationship is probably like the most relevant relationship in talking about this show, about like educating with love and proliferating cycles of violence. Parents have to deal with those conflicts day to day when they decide how they're going to raise their children. You know, politicians and, judges and people within the Justice Department, they have to make those decisions as well for entire groups of people or individuals, but parents have to make those decisions all the time, every day. And the question came up, how did Gandhi deal with discipline with you? Because that wouldn't be very Gandhi if he was, spanking the grandkids on the butt when they did something bad. That wouldn't be nonviolent at all. But Gandhi's grandson told a story, and this story exemplified exactly how Gandhi dealt with discipline. The grandson came home from school, and he had just the smallest amount of his pencil left. When you get to the end of the pencil, and you probably could sharpen it just a little bit more and get that little last out of it, but it'd be like really uncomfortable and kind of a waste of time. So the kid threw the pencil out on the way home. And when he got home, he told his grandparents, I need a new pencil. And that pencil was still good, and in the eyes of Gandhi, that's violence. It's violence. To not fully consume something is violent. And so Gandhi, required him to go out and find the pencil. And when he went out to go find the pencil, the kid, was very angry, and he ended up getting invited to go see a movie with his friend, or I don't know, it was a movie theater. It's like a long time ago. Maybe it was a movie, a picture show or whatever. And so the kid decided, fuck it, I'm mad at them, I'm gonna go. And he went, and Gandhi and his wife showed up to the theater and paid for the kid to go home, and then they walked home. And the kid was confused because he was like, I thought I'd be punished. Why don't you make me walk home? I thought I'd be punished. And that was Gandhi's way of punishing them, was for them to see them punish themselves. And so then the kid, the kid was not punished with, their own pain, but seeing someone else's pain and knowing that their actions created that other person's pain. That's some weird mind trick stuff. I know it's a little off topic, but I felt a little related to that about how to punish people. Punish them with love. That's what Gandhi would do. So yeah, I guess, Joe, you're on to something. Although Gandhi's grandson never admitted, he never ended up having kids himself, so he never had to, discipline his own children. But he never admitted if that was effective parenting or not. You want to push it back a couple hours? We'll talk to Sam about it. But yeah, Sam was planning on dropping in for a little bit, and I was too. I'm gonna be at my parents' house, cooking a meal with them. But I'll try to get in on Tea Talks. Yeah, it's Thanksgiving. We should drop in and say hi. I might not stream. We might just have some fun and connect. Yeah. Well, that's good you're spending some time with your family, Joe. I hope you guys can stay safe and still have fun. and eat well. Yeah. This is going to be the Thanksgiving of eating well, not abundant, but well. Yeah, I was reading the article on Monday with the hospitalities, focus that I do, and that was kind of in the news that food companies are expecting a 20% drop in food purchases this holiday, just because there's going to be a lot more smaller, spread out dinners versus a bunch of huge dinners. Because you think about a typical Thanksgiving, every household is anticipating 20 people coming at some point or another. And so they cook for all those people because they want to make sure they can feed everybody that comes through. There's always way more food left over, has to get thrown away. Some people are good with the leftovers, but most people aren't. And so, yeah, there's a lot of food waste. Because everybody is going to multiple houses. And they may eat big at one house, but all the other houses they visit, they're not so hungry anymore. But the host has prepared the food for them. So we're not going to have that this year. This year it's going to be, smaller groups, and everybody's going to be like really mindful on portions, and they're not going to want to overcook. Except for the turkeys. I think people are still going to buy larger turkeys just because they're cheap. But turkey leftovers aren't so bad. All right, Kayla, enjoy your walk. Thanks for tuning in and for contributing. Today was a nice, good discussion. Yeah, this was good. There's one thing that your family does is eat. Well, that's good. That's good that you've got a family. I think most families are like that. I don't know. Does anybody have a family where they just don't like to eat? Like, I know that there are individuals that don't like to eat. They have an identity of, like, I don't eat much. But I don't know if there's families that have that identity. I mean, there's families that are forced. But, of course, if there's the opportunity to eat, they would love to eat. Oh, none of your food goes to waste. That's good. Yeah, not every family is like that. Especially, like, people that are hosting, like, even outside of their family. And then if you're trying to save money, then the dishes you are going to make are going to be, like, not so good. A lot of boxed stuffing and canned cranberry. Yeah. Oh, someone sent me a picture of a tea table that just blew my mind. And I'm like, you know what? That is a tea table. I'll show it right now. Look at that. Faith sent me this picture. That's pretty crazy. All the memories. Lots of tea going on. How many different? We have like 1, 2, 3, 4. And I remember, so this tea table was at like tea house like 4 houses ago. And when we had things on this table, they were all being used. So all of these teapots must have had teed out. You can tell in this photo too, which is kind of funny. Holy teaware. Yeah, actually, I think this might have been one of the first times that Marie and Patrick had come to Vegas to hang out with us and drink tea. So we were really excited about. No, this was a later one because there's already a whole bunch of wares from them. I could see they had already started making guy one. That's their guy one. So they probably bought all their stuff over to share with us. But yeah, that was a fun tea table. Oh, we got 100 messages on on Twitch today. Thanks, Faith, for helping with that. Make us have an active Twitch. Oh, that's too bad. Someone didn't like the politics. The politics they're not partisan. We're just talking about the world. Oh well, some people see it as political. Democracy. There's a place at the tea table for this conversation because it's unity, it's community, and it's how we function. But yeah, honest truth. If like there's feedback about things becoming too partisan or becoming too biased, other than truth, we're biased towards information, and so that can make people feel uncomfortable. That's fine. But yeah, if you start to feel like any of the content is becoming too partisan or too biased towards one viewpoint or another, please feel free to let me know, and we'll try to address that. But I'm feeling comfortable that the content from this series, I feel. Oh, Faith, I just shared your photo of the tea table, and you must have missed it while you're getting food. I think that there's a place for this, and it's not encouraging one viewpoint or another, other than the viewpoint of let's question our system, and that's what TLET and what we do has been about the entire time. We want to question our current tea supply chain. We want to question, how agriculture is currently happening. So I think, you think that NPR is becoming biased? I guess so. I guess NPR has always been pretty biased. But yeah, maybe the article I shared today, because he had pretty strong opinions, and you could tell that he was biased towards, or having some enthusiasm and hope that the Democratic agenda was for this national renewal. That's the word to use. I don't know. I didn't agree with that. I just found the information that he brought in the article useful, and it was kind of fun to go on that rabbit hole. You've been listening to a lot of NPR. I don't listen to a lot of NPR now. I used to, and when I did used to, it was very swayed towards the Democratic perspective. But I do think that they're a good source for news. Like if I'm looking up an article and there's a choice between the main media sources, I'll usually go for the NPR article just because I think they're good at just getting the information out versus totally focused on the spin. But yeah, someone just sent me a message telling me that they felt uncomfortable that there's no politics in tea. Boy, you do not know tea. You do not know tea. You do not know the politics of tea. It is hugely political. And it's interesting because when I first started TLET and started traveling around and meeting people and meeting my peers within the industry, and one time I was traveling in India, and I was traveling with a peer, a new friend that I met, and we were getting to know each other. We were both kind of new to the business, and he tells me, he says, your work is so political. It's too political. And I'm like, what do you mean political? I don't think it's political at all. Like, we're not dealing in politics. This is purely commerce and tea quality and understanding tea. And now I've come to understand what he meant, because there's powers, the powers that are protected by something like the Constitution that exploit that power to make systems corrupt. So yeah, that's definitely what we're dealing with here, and why I feel a calling to do this work. So I'm sorry if it makes you uncomfortable. Please, you can talk to me about it and I'll try to address it. And I make mistakes. So I'd like to improve them. Yeah, if I'm just going to get an angry message, that's not going to do much good for anybody. So yeah, let me know. I am a very open, collaborative person, so I won't be offended. I understand that this is new territory and not everybody would understand, but all right, guys, I think I'm gonna go. I've been live for over an hour now, so I'm gonna head out, get some work done, get ready for Turkey Day tomorrow, or whatever we're eating tomorrow, Thanksgiving. Yeah, I'll see you guys maybe on Friday. I'll go live on Friday. That way I can just kind of prep everybody for what we got going on Saturday. And then again, yeah, the sale will start on Friday morning on the TNS People website. So get on that if you like. And I hope you guys have a beautiful, blessed rest of your day. See you soon.